Okay. Hands up here. Who is comfortable with their height? Who feels they're at a pretty good height? Okay, quite a few. Good, strong self-esteem in the room. Who'd like to be a bit taller? Oh, hello. Yep, a few hands there. Who wants to be a little bit shorter? There you go. Not very many. Okay, that's pretty much what you might expect given what the research tells us. If we are taller, we are going to be more likely to be paid more, to be promoted more, to win more votes in an election, and if you're an American president, to win a second or a third term. So then we've been told that to take up space in the world is to command authority. Men who puff up chests when they fight. And women have been told to adopt what's called the power pose. And if you haven't seen it, it's kind of like this. Put your hands on your hips. Don't I look powerful? That didn't go the way I wanted it to. It's supposed to be like Wonder Woman, right? Think about this before you do a talk. But what if a secret to being more content and a secret to being stronger was in fact being smaller versions of ourselves? Because there's a burgeoning body of research that shows a shrinking self, which is what happens when you're exposed to awe and to wonder, can make us stronger, calmer, kinder, more connected. Now, imagine this for a moment. Whatever your favourite awe scene might be, when you're sitting on a hill and you're looking up at a canopy of stars yawning above you out in the countryside. When you're sitting on the edge of a cliff in a huge storm and watching the waves pound the rocks under you. Or when you're watching neon blue waves curl towards you. You're sitting in a grove of trees that are reaching to the heavens above you. Now, how do you feel in that moment? There's something, isn't it? It's something, it's relaxing, it's soothing, and it's calming. You're aware that you're small in a vast universe, and that's calming. And the benefits of this are not just psychological, they're also, or individual, they're also collective. When you are exposed to awe, the research finds, we're more likely to feel connected to each other. Now, I first started thinking about this when I started doing ocean swimming early in the morning. You have to know I'm not a morning person, so this is not a true representation of me. Yep, that's not normally me. But this is what it turned me into, and I couldn't quite work out what was going on. I started swimming just after dawn in the local bay near where I live. And dawn, the time when it looks like, I think, those big flaming dawns, an arsonist has poured petrol along the horizon and set it on fire. And there was something that was happening to me I felt on a high for several hours afterwards. I felt elevated and lifted up. And I tried to work out what it was. So there was obviously a physical benefit, a mental benefit. I was getting out of bed early for starters. I was doing some exercise, first thing. I was seeing my friends. We were navigating big tides and rips and the various moods of the ocean. But there was also something else. Part of this was wonder. Now, where I swim is a protected marine park, so you can see astonishing things there, which is what happens when you don't pollute the sea and you let it be. And there's turtles and dolphins and whales and Port Jackson sharks and all manner of sights that are actually constantly delightful. Oh, and I should mention my very favourite, which is the cuttlefish, one of the strangest looking creatures of the sea. I walked on air after this. This was the first time I saw one. I walked on air for days after that. They're so prehistoric and strange and beautifully rippling, but they also interact with you. They will chase you, you can chase them. They will sometimes show off because they can go backwards, forwards. They will be like golden and smooth when they're going across the sand, and then when they hit the weed, they'll go all rumpled and red-brown. They're really spectacular. And I watched them from when they were little, this big, when they're basically almost just pure eyeball, growing into these big, splendid, giant cuttlefish. And that is how I got addicted to awe. I realized that this as a practice was pulling me out of myself, getting me away from the rumblings of my own brain, and it was making me feel so lucky to inhabit this earth and to be a tiny figure on the fringes of the earth. It was giving me so much. And I think it was especially the case when I had been sick. I've had 3 major surgeries for cancer, and they're all pretty brutal, and it took a while to get back on my feet. It took me a while to walk on the earth again, and the moment I could walk, I wanted to be in there. And every time I returned, I felt better. I felt stronger. The smaller I got, the stronger I got. And that's the key to awe. It makes us strong. And that's why I think that it's got to be pursued. It's not an incidental, serendipitous thing. You might wake up, on your way home, you might see a great sunset, beautiful, take a snap, put it on Instagram. You might see a great flower suddenly bloom. You might, I don't know, see a gorgeous plumed bird out on your walk. It's something that must be hunted and pursued and stitched to your life in a very deliberate way. Now, your question might be, what is awe? Which is a very good one. People use it often interchangeably, I do myself, with wonder. But wonder makes you stop and think and ask questions about the world and puzzle. Awe strikes you. It gobsmacks you. It drops your jaw. There's many definitions for it, but really the fundamental to all definitions of awe is that it's something beyond our current mental framework. It is something incomprehensible. And it doesn't have to be cuttlefish, it doesn't have to be enormous mountains, it can be art, it can be architecture, it can be sport, it can be some of these extraordinary performances that you see here. It can be dance and music. It can be acts of great generosity or magnanimity or courage that take us apart. And I really noticed during the pandemic how particularly sharp and persistent people's hunger for this became. We watched people on TikTok lean out of windows and look at clouds. People started hiking and ocean swimming. And so mine was cuttlefish, my friend that I swim with. This was hers, shells. She has this astonishing collection. I would swim with her and I look back and there are the feet disappearing as she goes down. She knows all the shells in the bay and worries if they've moved, if someone might have taken it. It's an individual thing, and here she is here. There's someone who's really loving the day, right? There is someone who has been chasing her shells and is completely delighted by it. Awe gives us so much. I think that's what we fail to recognise. Now, this is what the research shows us to date. Awe makes us feel more like inhabitants of the earth. It makes us feel, it makes us more helpful, more altruistic, kinder. It makes us ruminate less. It takes us out of our heads. Where even the parts of our brain that when you stew on things are more active, they're less active after you've had an experience of awe. And there's a lot of research as well around smallness. And smallness, people sign their names smaller after they had an experience of awe. They draw themselves as smaller figures. If you have one control group standing next to a T-Rex, compared to those who were standing next to the T-Rex and looking down the corridor, those next to the dinosaur were more likely to finish the sentence "I am" with the "I am part of a group, I am part of this university, I am part of a moral cause." People who left a park where they had these towering eucalypts were more likely to help someone when they left than those who hadn't had the same experience. We're nicer people when we're smaller. And I think that there's a study out recently which really showed why this is. It came out at the end of last year in the American Psychological Association journal called Emotion. And it was about awe walks. They had 2 groups. One went on a normal walk every day for a few weeks. The other went on an awe walk. Now, an awe walk means You pay attention to the world. You really look at all of the details, the nest in the tree, the shells in the sea, the whatever's happening in the seasons at that time. After a period of time, those who'd been on the ore walks, again, presented as being calmer, more social, more likely to help each other. Two really interesting findings. The first was they were supposed to take photos of themselves. And when they did, over time, at first it was the straight up selfie, and over time their heads took a smaller portion of the frame as they were kind of saying, oh, look back here at this incredible sight. Look at this bird, look at this tree, look at this thing that I'm seeing. They were paying attention to the world, and in that sense, I think it's the perfect antidote to narcissism, which is really, for me, what it's like to swim in the ocean. It's almost like a dissolving self. The other finding was that they were ruminating less, and they were tending to, when they wrote their diary journals, someone who'd been on the ore walk would be like, I'm feeling the moss and the twigs crunch underfoot, and I'm watching the colours change. The person who wasn't on the ore walk said, I was thinking about the trip to Hawaii we have to take next week and everything I have to do beforehand with my packing. These are all the things that ore does to us, and ore works. One person who knew that was Rachel Carson. You might know her as the woman who wrote The Silent Spring, who kicked off the modern American environmental movement with her analysis of the damage that pesticides was doing to the environment. She got strength through that work through exposure to awe, to wonder, and she used to take her 3-year-old nephew down wandering and looking through tidal pools at night with a flash torchlight. And she wrote the thing she was most proud of in her life was an essay she wrote several years before Silent Spring, which was about teaching your child how to wonder. And in it, she wrote, if I had influence with the good fairy who was supposed to preside over the christening of all children, I would ask that her gift to each child in the world be a sense of wonder so indestructible that would last throughout life as an unfailing antidote against boredom and disenchantments of later years, the sterile preoccupation with things that are artificial, the alienation from our sources of strength. This is what makes us strong. These are the sources of our strength. For me, when I was writing my book, Phosphorescence, it was that. I became obsessed with finding living light, particularly in waves. I looked for it everywhere, up and down the coast. I looked in Tasmania. I ended up finding it in the bay at the foot of my hill at 5 a.m. one morning with a torch on the back of my light, and there were sparkles and sequins and neon everywhere. This was just a few weeks ago, actually, when we saw it again. It doesn't have to be a trip to the Grand Canyon that gives you awe. It's in our backyard. It's down the end of our streets. It's in the sky. The point is to find out what it is that gives you awe, your sources and your sights, and hunt it or marinate it or get yourself close to it and soak it up and marvel in it. And let yourself be aware of being small. Let yourself shrink in the frame as the world takes over and you pay more attention to it. This world that we inhabit, this world that we are trashing, this world that we need to save, and this world that, despite everything, still does things of the most astonishing, incredible, unimaginable beauty. Now, doing this won't solve every problem in the world, but it can, for those who wish to try, give them some strength along the way. Because when you open yourself to awe, truly astonishing things can happen. Thank you.